All right, so today we're going to help get you prepped for a care-at-home worker interview. It's all about helping people live independently at home. And that could be elderly folks, people with disabilities, folks recovering from illness, anyone who needs a little extra support. We've got some great resources to help us out today. A career guide, an interview guide, and even some info on RoleCatcher's AI platform.
Wow, sounds like we've got a lot to cover. So, where should we start?
Well, let's start with figuring out what interviewers are looking for in a care-at-home worker. What are some of the key things that jump out at you from the career guide?
The thing that really stands out to me is the emphasis on active listening and also customer and personal service. It's really not just about like checking off tasks. It's about really connecting with people on a personal level and really being attentive to their individual needs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So how can our listener really highlight those skills in an interview setting?
Well, the interview guide actually has some great sample questions that can really help demonstrate those qualities.
Perfect. Let's dive into those questions then. What's the first one we should take a look at?
All right, so they almost always start with that classic opener. Tell me about your previous experience in care work. It's a pretty broad question, but it gives you a chance to showcase your unique experiences and strengths.
Okay, but what if someone hasn't actually had a formal caregiving position before?
That's totally fine. Think about times when you've volunteered, maybe helped family members, or taken on responsibilities that really show initiative and a caring nature. All of those experiences demonstrate those transferable skills that are really valuable in this field.
So it's about highlighting the qualities that make a great care-at-home worker, whether or not you've had that specific job title.
Exactly. Now, the guide recommends using the STAR method to structure your answers. Situation, task, action, result. It's like telling a concise story. That showcases your skills.
Okay, can you give us an example, tailored to this specific question and the caregiving field?
Sure. Let's say you are helping an elderly neighbor with their grocery shopping. The situation would be you describing your neighbor's limited mobility and their need for assistance. The task was making sure they had access to those groceries. Your action was not only doing the shopping, but also engaging them in conversation and checking if they needed help with anything else. And then the result could be highlighting their appreciation and how it made their day a bit brighter.
Ooh, I love that example. It really shows how even those everyday actions can demonstrate compassion and initiative. And I think it's a good reminder that the STAR method can help us frame those experiences in a way that really resonates with interviewers.
For sure. It's all about connecting the dots between your experiences and those skills needed for the job.
Now, what about potential follow-up questions? What else might interviewers ask to kind of dig a little deeper?
Be prepared for questions like, what did you find most rewarding about that experience? Or what were some of the challenges you faced?
So it's not just about presenting a rosy picture. It's about showing that self-awareness and the ability to learn from both the positive and the challenging experiences.
Exactly. It shows maturity and a willingness to grow, which are crucial in a role where you're constantly learning and adapting.
Okay, let's move on to another question that might come up. How do you handle difficult or challenging clients? This one always makes me a little nervous just reading it.
Yeah, I can understand why you'd feel a bit apprehensive about that one. But remember, interviewers are looking for someone who can remain calm, empathetic, and professional, even in those tough situations.
That's easier said than done sometimes, though.
It is. But the interview guide suggests using a specific example. Focus on your communication and problem-solving skills. Like, think of a time when a client was maybe feeling frustrated or upset. How did you approach that situation? What steps did you take to kind of de-escalate things and find a solution?
So it's not about pretending that difficult situations never happen. It's about showcasing your ability to navigate them with grace and composure.
Exactly. They want to see that you can maintain that professionalism while still being compassionate and understanding.
That makes sense. Can you give me an example of that?
Sure. Imagine a situation where a client is resistant to taking their medication. Instead of getting into a power struggle, you could acknowledge their feelings. Explain the importance of the medication in a calm and respectful way, and maybe even involve their family or doctor to address their concerns.
That's a great strategy. It really highlights the importance of communication collaboration and finding those solutions that respect the client's autonomy,
Yeah.
but also, ensuring their well-being.
Exactly. Finding that balance. And having a couple of these examples ready to go can really help you feel confident and prepared.
That's such a good tip. Now, this question about difficult clients actually brings up an important point for our listeners. Take a moment to think about your own experiences. How would you de-escalate a tense situation with a client? Reflecting on past experiences and considering different scenarios is a great way to prepare.
Definitely. Drawing on your own experiences can make your answers more authentic and relatable.
Okay, ready for the next question. This one's all about safety. How would you ensure the safety of your clients in their home?
All right, this is where your knowledge of safety protocols really comes in. Think about specific precautions, fall prevention measures, medication safety, having emergency contact info readily available, all of those practical things that demonstrate your commitment to a safe environment.
It's like creating a mental checklist of potential hazards
Yeah.
and thinking about those proactive steps to mitigate them.
Exactly. And this actually ties back to what the career guide mentions about technology advances. Things like remote monitoring systems and wearable devices are becoming more and more common. It's good to be aware of these advancements and how they contribute to client safety.
So showcasing your knowledge of relevant technology could really be a plus.
Definitely. It shows you're keeping up with the industry and thinking about how to use technology to enhance care.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the emotional side of this work. The question is, how do you balance the emotional demands of care work with your own well-being?
This is such a crucial question. Interviewers really want to see that you're self-aware and proactive about your mental health, because you can't effectively care for others if you're not taking care of yourself, right?
Right, it's a very demanding job emotionally. What are some things our listener can share that will demonstrate a healthy approach to self-care?
Talk about specific strategies you use to kind of de-stress and recharge. Maybe it's exercise, spending time in nature meditation, or simply taking time for yourself each day to do something you enjoy. It's about having healthy coping mechanisms in place to prevent burnout.
So self-care isn't selfish, it's essential.
Exactly. You can't pour from an empty cup.
All right, let's keep this momentum going. Next question. How do you communicate with clients who have communication difficulties?
This one highlights the need for patience, adaptability, and finding creative ways to connect with individuals who may have different communication needs.
Everyone communicates differently.
Yeah.
What kind of strategies would you recommend?
Think about things like visual aids, speaking clearly and slowly, using simple language, and paying attention to nonverbal cues. The key is to be flexible and willing to adapt your approach based on each client.
And being willing to try new things. Maybe learn some basic sign language. If that's relevant, it's really going the extra mile to make sure everyone feels heard.
Exactly. Building that bridge of understanding. So communication can flow even when there are challenges.
Now, before we jump into more questions, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, RoleCatcher's AI platform. How can this help our listener prep for their interview?
Oh, RoleCatcher can be a game changer when it comes to tailoring your answers to specific job roles. Its AI actually analyzes job descriptions and identifies those key skills employers are looking for.
So it's like a personalized cheat sheet.
In a way, yeah. It helps you understand what they're looking for and craft your answers to highlight the most relevant skills.
That's fantastic. And it goes beyond just written answers, right?
Absolutely. It even offers AI feedback on video practice, which is super valuable for refining your delivery and projecting confidence.
So like a virtual coach.
Exactly.
Giving you personalized feedback.
And the best part is, it's free to get started.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm going to check it out myself. Now, I know we have more questions to cover, but before we do, let's talk about the bigger picture. The career path of a care-at-home worker.
Sounds good.
And the career guide actually gives us some insights on this.
It does.
It breaks down the pros and cons.
It does.
Which is super helpful. So let's start with the basics. What does the career guide say about the job outlook and potential growth?
Okay, so the guide highlights a projected 6% growth rate for domiciliary care workers between 2019 and 2029, which is faster than average for all occupations. So that indicates strong and growing demand.
That's really encouraging. So it sounds like a career with a promising future. What factors are driving this growth?
Well, the guide points to a couple of key trends. First, we have an aging population, with more and more people needing help to age in place. And second, there's a growing preference for receiving care at home, rather than, in institutional settings.
So a combination of demographics and changing preferences. Okay, that makes sense.
It does. And it's good news for anyone entering this field.
Yeah.
Job security and plenty of opportunities.
Okay, so we've established that it's a growing field. But what about those pros and cons? Let's get into those. What are some of the most appealing aspects of this career, according to the guide?
The guide emphasizes the rewarding nature of the work. You're making a tangible difference in people's lives, helping them maintain their independence and dignity. And there's a strong emphasis on personal connection, building meaningful relationships with clients.
Yeah, that human connection keeps coming up.
Yeah.
It's not just about the tasks, it's about that compassion and companionship.
Exactly. And for a lot of people, that's super fulfilling. The guide also mentions the flexibility. You might have some control over your schedule, which can be great for work-life balance.
Yeah, that flexibility is really appealing, especially to people with families or other commitments.
Right. But of course, no job is without its downsides.
Let's talk about those challenges. What are some things that potential care-at-home workers should be aware of?
One of the biggest ones is the emotional toll. You're often dealing with people who are vulnerable, facing difficult situations, and witnessing that can be really emotionally draining.
Yeah, that makes sense. So self-care is crucial.
Definitely. The guide also mentions the physical demands. You might be lifting, bending, assisting with mobility, all of those tasks that require physical strength and stamina.
It's hands-on work.
Exactly. And then there's the pay. The guide acknowledges that wages can be relatively low compared to other healthcare professions.
That's unfortunate. But it's a reality in many caregiving roles. It's important to go into this field with realistic expectations.
It is. But it's also important to weigh those financial considerations against the non-monetary rewards, that sense of purpose, the human connection, the opportunity to make a real difference.
It's about finding the right balance
Yeah,
between personal fulfillment and those practical considerations.
exactly.
And that's where careful reflection and research come in.
It is.
It's important to consider all angles.
For sure.
Okay, speaking of research and preparation, let's circle back to those interview questions.
Let's do it.
We still have a few more to cover.
Okay.
Let's tackle this one. How do you handle confidential client information?
This question is all about showing your professionalism, your integrity, and your understanding of those legal and ethical obligations. When it comes to handling sensitive info,
It's about building trust and showing you can be discreet and responsible.
exactly. And it's good to be aware of the specific laws and regulations that govern data protection in healthcare.
Are there any specific regulations or acronyms our listeners should be familiar with?
Depending on where you are, you might want to mention GDPR, which stands for the General Data Protection Regulation. It's a set of rules to protect personal data in the European Union. And in the U.S., UAHI, or the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, is a key regulation that sets standards for protecting patient health info.
So mentioning those acronyms shows that you're aware of the legal framework surrounding data privacy.
It does, and then you can explain the steps you take to ensure confidentiality.
Things like storing documents securely, being mindful of who might overhear conversations, and only sharing information on a need-to-know basis.
Exactly.
Okay, next question. How do you support clients with physical disabilities to maintain your independence?
This question gets to the heart of what it means to be a care-at-home worker. It's about empowering clients to live as independently as possible, even with those physical limitations.
It's about fostering that sense of autonomy and dignity, rather than doing everything for them.
Exactly. Finding that balance between providing support and encouraging self-sufficiency.
What kind of examples could our listener use to illustrate this?
Think about ways you can adapt tasks to make them more manageable for the client. Maybe breaking down activities into smaller steps, providing assistive devices, or modifying the environment to make it more accessible.
For example, instead of dressing a client completely, you might help them put on their shirt while they practice buttoning it themselves.
Perfect example. It shows you're encouraging their participation and helping them build their skills.
And it's about recognizing that everyone's needs and abilities are different.
Absolutely. It's a person-centered approach, tailoring your support to each individual.
Okay, 2 more questions to go. Let's do the one about time management. How do you manage your workload and prioritize your tasks?
This question assesses your organizational skills and your ability to handle multiple responsibilities effectively.
It's a crucial skill in any job, but especially in this role where you might be juggling multiple clients' appointments and tasks.
Absolutely. So when you answer, talk about specific strategies you use to stay organized. Maybe you create daily to-do lists, use a planner or calendar, set realistic goals, break down large tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks.
It's about showing that you have a system in place
Right.
to manage your time and make sure nothing falls through the cracks.
And don't forget to mention flexibility. Things change quickly in this line of work, so being able to adapt and reprioritize is essential.
It's not about sticking to a rigid schedule. It's about rolling with the punches.
Exactly.
Okay, last question. How do you provide emotional support to clients and their families?
This is where that genuine compassion comes in.
It does.
It's about being a good listener, offering a shoulder to cry on, validating their feelings, and providing encouragement and support. Sometimes it's simply being present, being there for someone without judgment or expectation.
Creating a space where people feel safe to express their emotions.
Exactly. And sometimes it's about recognizing when professional help is needed and connecting clients and families with the right resources.
Being a compassionate advocate.
Yeah.
Guiding them towards the support they need.
Now, before we wrap up the questions, I want to mention RoleCatcher one last time. Remember we talked about its AI-powered feedback?
Yes. It can analyze your answers and give you tips for improvement.
Exactly. It can even give you suggestions for strengthening your star stories.
That's so helpful.
It is.
It takes the guesswork out of it.
It does, and it gives you that extra edge.
Okay, I think we've covered all 9 of those sample interview questions. Wow, that was a lot of information. But I feel like we've given our listener a really solid foundation.
I agree. And practice makes perfect. The more you rehearse, the more confident you'll feel going into that interview.
And don't forget those career insights we talked about. Understanding the bigger picture, the rewards, the challenges, can add so much depth to your answers.
Yeah, it shows you've done your research, that you're genuinely interested in this field and what it entails.
Now, before we wrap up this whole deep dive, there's one more aspect of the care at-home worker role I wanted to touch on. It came up in the career guide, and I think it's worth exploring a bit more.
Oh, okay. What are you thinking of?
Well, the guide touched on the day-to-day realities of the work. You know, the types of environments and interactions you might encounter. I think it'd be helpful for our listener to get a glimpse into that.
That's a great idea. It's one thing to talk about, skills and qualifications, but it's another to understand what it actually feels like to be a care-at-home worker.
Exactly. So let's paint a picture for our listener. What kind of work environments can they expect?
Well, as the title suggests, the primary work environment is the client's home. So you need to be adaptable and comfortable working in a lot of different settings.
Because every home is different.
Exactly.
You might be in a small apartment one day and a spacious house the next.
Right. And the condition of those homes can vary too. Some might be tidy and well-maintained, while others might be cluttered or even in disrepair.
That's a good point. You need to be ready for those realities. And comfortable working in environments that aren't always pristine or predictable.
Exactly. Being adaptable and resourceful. And finding ways to create a safe and comfortable environment for your clients.
Okay, now what about those personal interactions? Who will our listener be interacting with on a daily basis?
Well, most often it'll be your clients. And those interactions can range from friendly and casual to more challenging, depending on their personality needs and cognitive abilities.
Right. You'll be working with a diverse group of people.
Absolutely.
Each with their own background circumstances and communication style.
And it's not just about physical care. It's about building that rapport, engaging in meaningful conversations, and creating a sense of companionship.
Being that friendly face, that listening ear.
Exactly. And in addition to clients, you'll be interacting with their families, healthcare professionals, and potentially other care workers.
So it's a collaborative role.
It is.
Requiring strong communication and interpersonal skills. You need to be able to communicate effectively with lots of different people, advocate for your clients' needs, and work as part of a team to provide that holistic care.
Exactly.
Now, the career guide mentioned some potential challenges that come with these day-to-day realities. Can we talk about those for a second?
Sure. One of the challenges is those physical demands, like we mentioned earlier.
It's not a desk job.
Nope. And then there's that potential for emotional strain.
So being aware of those emotional demands is so important, and having strategies for managing stress.
It is. You're working with vulnerable individuals who might be experiencing pain, fear, sadness. And seeing those emotions day after day can take a toll if you're not careful.
It's about having those healthy boundaries and recognizing when you need to take a step back.
Absolutely. And seeking support when you need it.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to reach out to colleagues, supervisors, or mental health professionals.
Yeah. Now, the guide also mentioned limited career advancement opportunities, but we did talk about the possibility for specializations, management roles, and further education. So it's not a dead end. But it's good to be realistic.
Right. It's important to be aware that career progression might not be as straightforward as in other industries.
It's about finding your niche, building expertise, and advocating for your own growth.
And networking, building those relationships can open doors.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Now, one final challenge, lower pay compared to other healthcare professions.
Yeah, something to keep in mind.
It's important to have realistic expectations.
It is. But remember, the rewards often go beyond just money.
You're making a difference, providing support and companionship.
Exactly.
And for a lot of people, that's priceless.
It is.
So finding that balance is key.
It is.
Okay, I think we've painted a pretty comprehensive picture of the care at home worker role, from interview prep to career insights to the day-to-day.
We've given our listeners a lot of knowledge and insights.
And I think most importantly, we've encouraged them to tap into their passion and compassion, those qualities that make a real difference.
Beautifully said. Now, before we sign off, I was thinking about those technology advances from the career guide.
Oh, yeah. Remote monitoring systems.
Yeah.
Wearable devices.
Yeah. But I feel like there's more to it than that.
I agree. So for our listener who's about to embark on this career path, what's the takeaway? What should they be thinking about in terms of technology and its role in home care?
That's a great question, and one I'd like to leave our listener to think about. As you prepare for your interview and beyond, think about how technology can be a tool for empowerment, connection, and improved quality of life.
It's a challenge, an invitation to explore, and a reminder that the future of care is constantly evolving.
And who knows, maybe you'll be at the forefront of those innovations.
That's an inspiring thought. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Listener, we wish you all the best in your interview and in your journey as a care at home worker.
Remember, your compassion and dedication can make a world of difference.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating area. And speaking of technology, I actually wanted to highlight one more thing from our RoleCatcher materials.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What is it?
Well, remember how we were talking about how RoleCatcher uses AI to analyze job descriptions and tailor your answers to highlight those key skills?
Yeah, it's like having a personalized interview coach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond just helping you find jobs. It can actually help you get discovered by employers.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So it's a feature that's highlighted in that RoleCatcher Your Competitive Edge document.
Okay.
Basically, registered employers can use RoleCatcher in reverse, like searching for candidates whose skills and experience match their open positions.
So it's not just about actively searching for jobs. It's about passively attracting the right opportunities.
It is. And here's the really cool part.
Okay.
If you opt in, employers can actually reach out to you directly if they think you're a good fit. Oh, wow. That cuts out so much of the hassle of the traditional job search. No more sending out a million applications.
Exactly.
It's like RoleCatcher is doing the legwork for you.
It is. It's a much more efficient and targeted approach.
I am blown away by this feature. I need to update my RoleCatcher profile, ASAP.
I highly recommend it.
Speaking of empowerment, as we wrap up this deep dive, I keep coming back to that question you posed earlier. Where do you see yourself in 5 years within this field?
Yeah, it is a powerful question. It really makes you think about your future.
It does, and it's especially relevant in a field like caregiving, which is constantly evolving.
So true, 5 years from now, the technology we've been discussing might be everywhere.
Yeah, and who knows what other innovations will have emerged.
Right, it's so exciting to think about.
Maybe our listener will be leading the charge, developing new tools and techniques to improve the lives of vulnerable adults.
Yeah, or maybe they'll be managing a team of caregivers, mentoring new recruits.
Or they'll have found a specialization they're passionate about, like dementia care.
Oh yeah, or end-of-life care.
The possibilities are endless.
They are.
And that's what makes this field so inspiring. It's not just a job, it's a calling.
Beautifully said. And listener, no matter what path you choose, remember your compassion, dedication, and willingness to learn will be there every step of the way.
Absolutely. Have no doubt you'll do amazing things.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. We hope you found it informative, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit challenging.
Yes.
Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
It does.
And today you've taken a giant leap forward.
Best of luck in your interview and in all your future endeavors.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about how technology is changing things, isn't it?
It really is. And, while we're on the topic of technology, I just thought of something else from our RoleCatcher materials. It really stood out to me.
I always love these little nuggets you pull out.
Well, remember how we were talking about RoleCatcher using AI to analyze job descriptions and tailor your answers?
Yes. It's like having a personalized interview coach right in your pocket.
Exactly. But here's the thing. It goes beyond just helping you find jobs. It can help you get discovered by employers.
Tell me more.
Yeah, so it's a feature that's highlighted in that RoleCatcher Your Competitive Edge document.
Okay.
Essentially, registered employers can use RoleCatcher in reverse. They can search for candidates whose skills and experience match their open positions.
So it's not just you searching for jobs, it's the jobs finding you.
Exactly. And get this.
Okay.
If you opt in, Employers can directly contact you if they think you're a good fit.
Wow, that's amazing. No more sending out countless applications and just hoping for the best.
Right. It's much more efficient.
RoleCatcher's doing the work for you.
Exactly. It's about putting yourself out there and letting those opportunities come to you.
I'm blown away by this feature.
Yeah,
I need to update my profile right now.
you should. It's a game changer.
Speaking of empowerment, as we wrap up, I keep thinking back to that question you asked earlier. Where do you see yourself in 5 years in this field?
It really makes you think about the future, doesn't it?
It does, especially in a field like caregiving that's always changing.
Yeah, 5 years from now, who knows what the technology will be like.
Right? Maybe our listener will be leading the charge, developing new tools and techniques to help people.
Maybe. Or maybe managing a team of caregivers and sharing their expertise.
Or specializing in something they're passionate about.
Like dementia care.
Yes, or end-of-life care.
There are so many possibilities.
It's inspiring, isn't it?
It is. And listener, no matter what you choose, remember that your compassion, dedication, and that willingness to learn will guide you.
We have no doubt that you'll accomplish amazing things.
So on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. We hope you found it helpful and inspiring.
And maybe even a little bit challenging.
Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
It does.
And today, you've taken a huge leap forward.
Best of luck in your interview and in all your future endeavors.
Until next time, keep diving deep.